I, 28F, got married to my now ex-husband Mike, 42M, 7 years ago. To be honest, I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but after what happened yesterday, I feel like I need to get this off my chest. Our marriage was happy by all standards, even though I had some minor issues with his family. The family dynamic was very close-knit. He had an older sister Sophia, 46F, who was married to David, 48M. They had 2 kids, and Mike absolutely adored them. I was the fun aunt, and the kids seemed to like me too, so everything was pretty much perfect. About 5 years ago, Mike and I hit a rough financial patch. I decided to take a break from my job at a major tech company in Silicon Valley. The work environment there was extremely toxic, no boundaries, constant on-call expectations, and completely unsupportive management. My mental health was at rock bottom, and after discussing it with Mike, he encouraged me to take some time off. We've always kept our finances separate, maintaining a joint account only for shared expenses like groceries, household items, and date nights. The contributions to this account were proportional to our incomes. Since Mike earned more than me, his actual contribution was higher, though we were putting in the same percentage. I had carefully analyzed our finances before deciding to take this break, and I had never suggested that Mike should cover my share. Actually, he was the one who proposed that idea, but I immediately shot it down. Mike had a well-paying job at a multinational firm, and there was absolutely no reason for us to face any financial issues. However, 3 months into my break, Mike started acting strangely. He would snap at me over the smallest things, if I suggested getting takeout, if I bought something new, or if I wanted to go out for dinner. Even when I was spending from my personal savings, which he had no say over, he would act weird. At first, I thought it was just stress from work, but his behavior became increasingly erratic. When I finally confronted him, he tried to brush it off, but then dropped a bomb that would change everything. He had gambled away almost all of our savings, and we had practically nothing left. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had been in charge of our finances, and I had trusted him completely. I never bothered checking my accounts because this had never happened before. When I finally looked at our financial situation, it was far worse than he had made it out to be. We were literally bankrupt, and our house was about to be repossessed. I immediately started applying for jobs, frantically trying to salvage what was left of our financial stability. I also got Mike into therapy, and thankfully, I received a job offer within 3 days with amazing benefits. I knew I could slowly rebuild our wealth, but the trust was irreparably damaged. During this crisis, I repeatedly suggested asking David for help. He's quite wealthy, and I thought he could help us get back on our feet. But Mike kept refusing, citing his pride and dignity. I couldn't understand his stupid pride when we were about to lose everything we had worked for. Finally, I took matters into my own hands and called David, explaining our situation. He helped us immediately, no questions asked. Instead of being grateful, Mike started a huge fight with me. He claimed I had emasculated him as the head of the family by going to his brother-in-law behind his back. Even at this crucial point in our lives, when we were practically starting from scratch, all he cared about was his stupid ego and the facade he had created for his family. That was my tipping point. I was furious. He had single-handedly destroyed not just his own financial security but mine as well, completely derailing the plans we had made for our future family. We had been planning to try for a baby, but I told him straight up that there was no way I would consider having children until he got his act together. Instead of acknowledging his mistakes, he accused me of being a controlling wife, completely ignoring the fact that I had gotten us out of this mess with David's help. Over the next year and a half, we slowly rebuilt our finances and repaid every penny to David. I will always be grateful to him for standing by us and helping us out of a situation that had nothing to do with him. Mike, however, remained bitter about the fact that I had involved David, constantly complaining that he hadn't wanted anyone in the family to know about our situation. Thankfully, David hadn't said a word to anyone, not even to Sophia. Things had been strained between Mike and me since then, but I was still holding on to hope that things would eventually get better. However, something happened that made me lose all respect for him as a person. Once we were back on our feet, I started noticing tension between Sophia and David during family gatherings. I know it wasn't my business, but I was concerned, especially for David after everything he had done for us. When I expressed my concerns to Mike, he dismissed them, saying I was overthinking things. 2 days later, I went to Sophia's house to drop off some pastries for the kids. She was acting incredibly weird, practically pushing me out the door. Something felt off, so I decided to trust my instincts. Instead of leaving immediately, I waited in my car to see what was going on. Call me creepy or whatever, but my gut was telling me something wasn't right. Sure enough, within minutes, I saw a man leaving the house, and Sophia was seeing him off. I might not have immediately suspected anything if she hadn't been acting so guilty. The man had a cap pulled low over his face and was hunched over, clearly trying to avoid being seen. Their body language told me everything I needed to know. Sophia was cheating on David. I was disgusted by her audacity and ingratitude, especially after everything David had done for our family. Part of me wanted to confront her right there, but I was too shocked and scared of her reaction. I wasn't even sure if confronting her was the right thing to do. I drove straight home and told Mike what I had seen. I expected shock, rage, disgust, or maybe even disbelief from him. But what he actually said left me completely stunned. He was quiet for a few seconds, then asked if I had told anyone else. When I said no, he actually sighed in relief and told me I needed to keep quiet about what I had seen. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I told him he had lost his mind if he thought I would keep quiet and let David suffer in a marriage with a cheating wife. Mike tried to rationalize it, saying we didn't know the full story, that maybe they had an open marriage. Both of us knew David well enough to know he would never agree to something like that. I told Mike we needed to talk to David first, before approaching Sophia, because I knew she would just make up excuses to save herself. Mike kept coming up with more and more absurd reasons why we shouldn't tell David. First, he said it wasn't our business to get involved in someone else's personal drama. Then he claimed we didn't really know what was happening in their relationship. I have to admit, I found myself wavering a couple of times, almost convinced by Mike's manipulative arguments to talk to Sophia first. My rational mind knew what was happening was wrong and that I needed to step in to help the man who had saved my family. But the emotional side of me, the part Mike was manipulating, kept wanting to accept his bizarre excuses for his sister's behavior. This internal battle raged inside me for days until I finally decided I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do the right thing. Before telling David, I let Mike know my intentions. He went completely ballistic, worse than during the gambling crisis. He kept insisting I had no right to interfere in his sister's life and to ruin it. The way he fiercely defended cheating started ringing alarm bells in my head. I told him his stance on infidelity was concerning and made me wonder how he would react if I ever cheated. He said he wouldn't want someone else coming to tell him about his own wife's infidelity. That's when a horrifying thought hit me. Maybe the reason he was so adamantly defending Sophia's infidelity was that he was trying to rationalize his own cheating. I had no proof, no reason other than his reaction to even have a morsel of doubt, but that seed was planted. I drove to David's house, hoping to have a confrontation with Sophia present, but she wasn't there. When I told David everything, he broke down crying. He admitted he'd been having suspicions about her infidelity, but had no proof and couldn't accuse her based on just his instincts. I was honest with him. I told him that logically speaking, the man I saw could have been anyone, a worker, a friend, but my gut feeling said otherwise. He thanked me for telling him, and for the next few weeks, there was complete silence. Mike and I were in a kind of cold war, but I don't think he had told Sophia about my discovery or my conversation with David. Then David dropped the bomb one day, announcing that he and Sophia were getting a divorce. This came as a complete shock to my in-laws because no one had anticipated it. They had always been the perfect couple, in everyone's eyes, everyone except me, of course. Sophia looked devastated and had clearly been crying, while David remained a true gentleman and never revealed the real reason for their separation, only saying that the relationship couldn't be salvaged. A few days later, Sophia showed up at our house, screaming at me at the top of her lungs. I knew then that Mike had told her I was the one who had informed David. She hurled curses at me that I can't even repeat. I kept my cool throughout her tirade and told her she had brought this upon herself. Blaming me wouldn't change the fact that she had chosen to cheat. By this point, Mike and I had completely stopped talking, living in the same house but existing in different worlds. The mental strain was becoming unbearable. Gradually, Sophia and Mike started turning other family members against me. Sophia banned her kids from seeing me, and Mike told his mother that I had fed David lies about poor Sophia, which was why they were separating. I became the villain overnight, and everyone was so busy antagonizing me that they didn't stop to consider who the real problem was. Finally, I'd had enough. Mike and I had been having troubles since his gambling came to light, and with this drama unfolding, I knew I wanted a divorce. Nothing he could do would make me respect him again. I couldn't picture myself living with a gambling addict who could so readily defend cheating. He was acting like a guilty man, and to be honest, I had a lurking fear that he was cheating on me too. By then, I had mentally checked out of the marriage, so even if he was having an affair, it wouldn't have really bothered me anymore. This realization only cemented my decision to get a divorce. I called the entire family together and laid everything out in the open. I told them the real reason why Sophia and David were divorcing, that I had seen her with a stranger and had confided in Mike, who was willing to defend his sister to the bone. Nothing I said had made him see sense, and when I told David about the affair, the brother-sister duo started publicly maligning me. To my surprise, even my in-laws started defending their children. That's when I understood, without a shadow of doubt, that this family was completely dysfunctional, and I was absolutely right in choosing to walk away for the sake of my mental health. When I publicly announced my intention to divorce Mike, there was pin-drop silence in the house. Mike looked like someone had struck him with a baseball bat, his eyes were as wide as saucers. I can't describe the satisfaction I felt seeing him like that. I also told him that since he had such a close-knit family, he needed to move out of my house within 2 weeks because I was dead set on going through with this. His tone did a complete backflip. He kept apologizing and saying we could work through this. In all honesty, maybe we could have, but I didn't want to. He tried to turn over a new leaf, organizing date nights and booking spa appointments as if my problem was a lack of attention. He just didn't understand the gravity of the situation. I had to sit him down and tell him point blank that I was leaving him because I didn't like who he was as a person. It wasn't something he could change about me, and my decision to leave him was final. He had a hard time accepting it, but eventually, he had to. He moved out of the house, and our divorce was finalized pretty quickly, around the same time as David and Sophia's. Within a few months, I sold my house and moved states for a better job opportunity. I've made the move to my current state and job 3 years ago. Since then, I haven't been in touch with anyone from that family. David and I talk occasionally, but nothing more. Update 1. Since many of you have been invested in this story, I thought I should share some fresh developments that have left me completely stunned. I did some digging because this was too juicy not to follow up on, and I found out that Sophia and Mike's new wife Ashley, 21F, have been spending lavishly across Europe. They've been updating their social media frequently, which seems a bit suspicious because it's all public information and easily accessible. They've been posting on Instagram and other platforms, but I think they might have blocked everyone from the family so nobody knows what's happening on their end. From what I can see, they're staying at luxury hotels and shopping at high-end stores, seemingly without a care in the world. The more interesting part is that I received a text from an unknown number yesterday. It was Mike, and he was crying hysterically on the phone, saying he had made the biggest mistake of his life by letting me go and that he should have trusted my instincts every step of the way. I wasn't really in the mood for his regrets, so I asked him what was going on, though I already had a pretty good idea based on my social media findings. Apparently, both Sophia and his new wife had been missing since last week. At first, he thought something had happened to them and went to the police, genuinely concerned for their safety. However, the police got back to him saying that both women were safe and had explicitly asked him not to try to contact them. The reality was even more shocking than what I had discovered. His new wife and sister had emptied his bank account completely and run away together. I'm hoping for his sake that it's just a vacation and they'll be back, because he's thoroughly screwed if it's something else entirely. He was bawling on the phone like a toddler, and I'll admit, I wanted to laugh in his face rather than comfort him. Call me mean, but it is what it is. He brought this upon himself, and now he can lie in the grave he dug. The irony of his sister, the very person he defended so vigorously, being the one to betray him wasn't lost on me. I told him I was sorry for what was happening but couldn't really understand why he was involving me in his personal drama, threw his own words right back at him. He went silent for a while, and I knew I had delivered the dig I wanted. Then he had the audacity to ask for my help in tracking them down. He also needed my input on how to improve his finances since I was the one who had gotten him out of the mess the last time. The desperation in his voice was palpable, but all I could think about was how he had dismissed my concerns and defended his sister's infidelity. I told him to eat dirt and that I wasn't helping him out. I made it clear that I had nothing more to do with him and anything he faced was his problem and his alone. Then I hung up, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and satisfaction. I hate to admit this, but I am delighted that he's finally facing consequences for ruining my life. I'm glad I divorced him and in no way want him back, but what hurts me the most is how he made me work so hard to replenish our wealth and then showed his true colors and his stance on cheating. Had I known he would turn out to be someone like this, I would have walked out of the marriage the minute he told me about the gambling. But I stayed and slogged through it, and I did it only for him. All of that amounted to nothing in the end. This is what pisses me off the most, and I'm glad that his actions and habits are finally catching up to him. The fact that it's Sophia who betrayed him, out of all the people in the world, feels like poetic justice. It's as if karma finally caught up with both of them at once. One part of me thinks that I should just let him know what I found out and help him with information at least. The other part says that if I do help him, he'll cling to me like a leech and will ask for more favors. Moreover, if I could find out their whereabouts, so can he, if he would just use his brains and quit weeping like a baby instead of expecting me to clean up his mess again. He texted me another sob story again, saying I needed to help him or he would be at the lowest point of his life. I can't deal with this nonsense every few days, and while I'm considering giving in just to get him off my back, I honestly don't know if I should get involved in any way with this family's drama again. Update 2, a new drama has stirred up, and I need to share this because it's even more disturbing than I initially thought. I did end up telling Mike what I'd found online about Sophia and Ashley's European adventure, and he thanked me and immediately started asking for more favors. I drew a firm line and told him I wouldn't be entertaining any more of his pleas or even calls. He sounded offended but bit his tongue and didn't argue. I thought that was the end of it since he hadn't contacted me after that, but I couldn't have been more wrong. 2 nights ago, my ex-mother-in-law called me in the middle of the night, sounding absolutely frantic. She's never called me since the divorce, so I knew something serious had happened. She said they had landed in serious legal trouble and desperately needed my help. I'm a lawyer specializing in tech law, and she was practically begging for legal advice. Then she dropped a bombshell that made my blood run cold. Apparently, Ashley had actually eloped with Mike, and her parents are now threatening to file abduction charges against him. I shot up from my bed like somebody had electrocuted me. The implications were horrifying. Mike had run away with a 21-year-old, which means that despite her being of legal age now, this was clearly emotional manipulation. I felt nauseous and disgusted. I couldn't believe I had been married to a predatory man like him for so many years without noticing anything. When I asked for more details, my ex-mother-in-law revealed something that made the situation even more disturbing. She told me that if Ashley had come of her own accord, the allegations would be null and void, and there was nothing her parents could do legally. That's when she started crying uncontrollably, saying that Ashley is now agreeing with what her parents are saying. She's also claiming that Mike was involved with her when she was a minor and had groomed her. The worst part? She's refusing to take Mike's side and is prepared to testify against him. The more I heard, the sicker I felt. Doing the math made me want to throw up. This was why he had been defending his cheating sister so fiercely. He was also cheating on me and grooming a minor girl the entire time. All those late nights at work, all those business trips, all those times he defended Sophia's behavior, everything suddenly made horrible sense. I told my ex-mother-in-law that they all deserved to rot in the afterlife for playing with a young girl's life and emotions. She had the audacity to beg me to represent Mike in court, saying they were all sorry and that he was a changed man. I told her straight up that I would happily fight against him if the case arose, but never for him. I also told her she had some nerve coming to me, knowing well that her precious son had cheated on me with a minor, used my resources to rebuild his life after gambling everything away, and was now facing consequences for his predatory behavior. She cursed me and hung up, but I've been having sleepless nights since then. I cannot believe that he would turn out to be a predator. I keep racking my brain, trying to remember if there were signs that I missed. Were there clues in his behavior? In the way he interacted with younger women? In his fierce defense of his sister's infidelity? I feel physically ill thinking about my association with someone as disgusting as my ex-husband. He deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life and then some. I feel horrible for Ashley. Even if this started when she was 17, that would have been 4 years ago when Mike was 38. He was involved with a school-going kid, someone 21 years his junior, and had ended up marrying her. The more I think about it, the more questions I have. How was this girl Sophia's friend in the first place? If Sophia was the one who had introduced them, it's even more disturbing because that meant that the entire family was involved in this predatory behavior. They all knew and said nothing. They protected him, just like they tried to protect Sophia. Looking back, I realize I saved myself and my future from them in the nick of time. Their whole close-knit family facade was just a cover for protecting each other's despicable behavior. The worst part is thinking about how many other victims there might be that we don't know about. How many other young girls might Mike have approached? How many other affairs might Sophia have covered up? Update 3, I thankfully have no direct updates from anyone from my ex's family anymore. My ex-mother-in-law has gone silent, and so has Mike. However, David spoke to me recently, and I got to learn quite a few disturbing details about how everything played out. Apparently, Emily and Ashley had come back home within a few weeks of their European adventure, and it was here that Ashley started changing her tune. She stated firmly that she had been groomed and wanted to divorce Mike immediately. When her parents got involved, they threatened legal action not just for the recent events but for Mike's past behavior as well. David provided me with some insights that made my skin crawl. He said that while the case her parents were building might have stood on somewhat shaky legal grounds, it was enough to terrify Mike and his family. The evidence they had collected, including text messages and emails dating back to when Ashley was still a minor, was damning enough that Mike agreed to pay a substantial amount of money to Ashley and her family to keep quiet and not press any criminal charges. So he's officially financially ruined now. Sophia, true to her character, feigned complete innocence in all of this, claiming Ashley had told her that Mike had given her the money willingly for their European trip. Everybody knows it's complete nonsense, but at this point, they don't have anyone else to turn to except each other. Their whole support system has crumbled, and they're finally facing the consequences of their actions. The financial situation has become so dire that my ex-mother-in-law and ex-father-in-law are planning to downsize dramatically. They're all going to be sharing a one-bedroom apartment until things can get sorted out, if they ever do. Since Sophia only works a minimum wage job at a local store and Mike has literally no money left in his bank account after the settlement, they don't have any other choice. It's quite a fall from their previous lifestyle of luxury homes and expensive vacations. David told me that Sophia had actually called him up multiple times, begging for financial help, but he didn't even entertain her calls. He has full custody of their kids now, so she couldn't even use them as leverage to get money from him. The kids are apparently doing much better without the toxic influence of their mother, which is at least one silver lining in this whole mess. All in all, the entire family is codependent and seriously messed up, and I am so glad I got out of their chaos when I did. The way they enabled and covered for each other's despicable behavior is truly disturbing. Even though I would have preferred not to be involved with them in any capacity ever again, I had hoped Mike would serve actual jail time for what he did to that poor girl. He's a groomer and a predator, and I know for sure that if he managed to pull off something like this once and get away with just financial consequences, he's likely to do it again. The very thought that he might have other victims out there makes me sick to my stomach. I've been considering reaching out to organizations that help victims of grooming, just to see if there's anything that can still be done to prevent him from hurting more young girls. But part of me also knows that getting involved any further with this family's drama would only bring more stress into my life. I wish something more could be done to put him behind bars, but I suppose sharing a one-bedroom apartment with his parents and sister, living in poverty after being used to luxury, is its own kind of punishment. The fact that he has to depend on the same sister who helped steal his money is particularly ironic. I have not been contacted by them since my last conversation with David, and I have them all blocked on every possible account and device. I'm hoping that this is truly the end of it and that I don't have any reason to update this story again. I'm completely sick of their drama and desperately need some peace of my own. Looking back, I can see now that their supposedly close-knit family was really just a network of enablers protecting each other's criminal behavior. I'm beyond grateful that I managed to escape before getting dragged down with them.